Okay, he's live.
All right, good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Union County Board of Education Policy Committee meeting. Today is Wednesday, July 28th. We have all committee members present except for myself via the phone. I'd like to start with calling this meeting to order with the approval of the agenda.
Move to approve the agenda.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Next is approval of open session meetings from May 26th. We did not have a meeting in June, so I need a motion to move that we approve the meetings from May 26th.
So moved. Oops, sorry.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Good. And first up are policies for second review, starting with policy 2-3, settlement of claims.
Yeah. Yes, good morning. This policy came to the policy committee in May, and we made some changes at that. It went to the board in June and is back here today for second review, and I can answer any questions any members of the committee have.
So I found the language really interesting. 8 agents of the board. And on page 3, in the bottom paragraph where it says this policy shall not be interpreted, and about the third line down, it said reduce or eliminate the rights of the board or any member of the board. So I wanted to walk through that and get some legal, like what is that trying to say about the board?
It's not trying to say anything about the board as an entity or members. What that does is sometimes when you settle a claim and you purchase insurance, it impacts liability and availability to be sued. And so the purpose of this is to say that it doesn't reduce the rights of the board, any member and employee, if you're sued individually by settling a claim. It leaves insurance options open. It leaves all legal defenses open. This is saying that by settling a claim or having an ability to settle a claim, we're not impacting the rights that would be available under governmental immunity, insurance, et cetera.
I would like to know where this paragraph came from. Was it written here, or was it written, what was it, a recommendation from the state? And can you provide an example from the state and where we can go read this?
This language, I believe, was taken from a review of the policies, PLS, policies for, can't remember what it's, policy list survey, I can't remember, but it's from the North Carolina School Boards Association.
Michelle, I don't have the May document with me. What was changed since May? Because I'm kind of with
Todd, I have the May 26th document with me, and this paragraph was not in there at all.
And who recommended this change be added?
When I'll have to look, I'm pulling up the May meeting. When I provide policies for review, when it comes time, I look at statutory changes. I look at things that come from the School Boards Association. I look at other districts' policies. And so that's where we gather the information from. Let me pull up the May. I thought it was part of the May meeting, but let me.
Here's May.
Yeah. Okay.
So that's why I was so
okay.
concerned, because the language really sounds like the rights of the board or any member of the board would be waived, reduced, or the rights eliminated.
The intent is that it's the rights of the board that are not reduced, waived, or eliminated. Let me see. Let me get to that paragraph again. I'm sorry, I'm at the wrong paragraph now. Yeah, the adoption of this policy is not a waiver or of defense or any right or right of the board. So that's the purpose, is it does not waive, reduce, or eliminate. And that's why it says that the policy should not be interpreted to in any way relieve the insurance company, waive or reduce or eliminate the rights. This is a way to protect all of that. But if the board, if the committee wants me to remove it, I certainly can strike that.
So between first review and second review, this is new. Should we move it back for second review?
I'm going to look and see what
So
went to
that
the
we have
board.
time to make sure that we get this right.
We certainly can. I'm just going to look and see what went to the board.
Right, I guess that is, I always assume that from first to second review, there's no changes to the document. So I think that's what the issue is, that it probably should go back.
So
To
I
the
don't
full
know
board.
if you
Yeah,
saw
I did.
that. but
That's,
okay.
you're correct. It was not in there. I'm not, it's been so long, I can't recall what the change. And we'll certainly hold it, and we can either put it on for first review with the others, or we can table it, whichever is the pleasure of the committee.
Okay, and I definitely would recommend, with conversation, since there has been changes, that we move this off of first review back to second review, take this up again in a month, and then present to this committee where from the state, so that we can see the state's language in comparison to ours. And then I would like to have a conversation because it says or agent of the board has been inserted multiple times. And so I think we should have a conversation, like give us some examples of what would an agent of the board be.
An agent of the board would be somebody who's not officially an employee, but is working on the board's behalf, or in a role that the board could be somebody representing the board. A coach would be an example. A contracted employee would be an example. Those are two that I can think of off the top of my head.
So when you say, like, the board doesn't have contracts with coaches, and principals are typically, hired and brought on, to do coaching without the board's ever knowing that person's background or anything. So are coaches really agents of the board, even though we have not vetted them or they're not on contract? I certainly haven't signed off on them being a coach because that was at the principal's discretion.
Mhm.
So in the education community, coaches are still agents of the board.
Well, we typically, yes, because they are acting in a role that is affiliated closely with the district. And so they go through our screening process, through the volunteer screening process. Volunteers would be another example of an agent of the board, because they're.
What are you talking about?
So the paragraph you're talking about was crossed out.
It was
and
just
then
moved.
But it wasn't the same language either.
Mhm.
So some of it is the same,
Oh, wait,
some
hold.
of it is not.
Here's May.
Okay, let's see.
So-
Go to the,
Yeah, I thought it was just moved.
wait, the next page.
I was going to
Okay,
look at that
right there.
myself.
So,
But it's a little bit different.
so we brought it back. No,
Yeah, right?
It's moved language. When I strike it out and put it someplace else, it's just moved.
But it's not. But
it's not where it
wasn't
was.
moved. It
Right,
wasn't moved. It was just struck in.
No,
Well, and
it was moved to here.
I was saying it on the May one, it was stricken. Oh, it's stricken now.
yeah, what happened is,
So
Was in
here's
there and
May.
They moved it. So
Yeah.
it was there and then it was moved and added stuff to it.
Okay.
So we still need to go back to first.
and when it went to the board, it was as it is today, not as it was in May.
So you moved
It was-
something from page 2 to page 3, but changed the language.
A little bit.
It's in my notes from after the committee meeting, so I don't know, and I'd have to have Katie pull up whether it was discussed and we decided to move it that way. I don't recall. I don't generally. I can't recall of a situation when I've just changed things and not.
It's a little bit different.
I think I read it very different. And it was moved from settlement authority of the settlement.
Yeah, it's in the
Under
same.
authority of the superintendent to,
It should be under the settlement paragraph under both. It's just further down in the.
so how did it go from stricken or not stricken to stricken and moved?
Well, when I reorganize a policy to make it flow better,
Okay,
I will strike it and move it so that you know that it's not, that it was there and moved. But I put it in red so you don't.
so we would know it was moved.
Correct.
Okay, but the language has still been modified from May 26th.
I'm trying, I
Yeah,
don't.
It's
It's a little bit, it's different.
it's different.
Is it?
Yeah.
So because of the changes, do we want to take this back for first review?
Yes,
Yep, we can do that.
second review.
It'll be first review for the board. Second review is when you approve it.
Okay,
So we're moving this to under new policies for the first review.
What we'll do is we'll put it to the board for first review. We'll just, the motion will be, instead of sending it to the board for approval, it'll go to the board for first review.
okay, going back to agents of the board. So you were saying coaches, contracted,
Volunteers might be another one.
volunteers might be another one.
Yeah.
Contract.
If that's the language of public education, then I'll just have to go with it. But it makes me extremely nervous to put that burden on board members that have nothing to do with principals vetting or doing background checks or interviewing coaches, for example, or volunteers, for example. And I would hope any contract would come to committee and recommend it to the full board. I don't know. I mean, walk me through that.
Yeah, well, the contract is, but the people who are working under the contract would not be.
Okay.
And what this does is this gives you protection. The language is here is to protect you all so that if a PTO member misbehaves,
Mm-hmm.
this gives us the ability to address it.
Okay.
And so it's a protection as
So
opposed to.
PTO is another example.
Yeah, because they're
They're volunteers.
Yeah.
Boosters would be another.
Yeah.
Okay.
So they are perceived by the public to be a representative of the district. And so this is a way to address situations.
Okay. Then let's just, let's take some more time on that one.
Are we going to put it to first review to the board, or we want to talk about it next time?
We can table it for another meeting if you'd
Let's
like.
I recommend we table it for the next meeting.
So moved.
Are you good with that, Todd?
I'm good. So we're going to just bring it back as first review to us.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Got
I
it. Very
think
good.
so. Okay.
Next meeting. Right.
So do we need a second, Michelle?
Yes, please.
John second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, next up for first review, first is policy 2-19, contracts with the board.
Yes, this policy is coming to you after some, it was reviewed not that long ago. Some unintended consequences came out of the changes. And so we've tried to address those and also have changed the purchase amount at the principals and department heads up to $10,000.
And that was a request, I'm sorry, that was a request from finance to?
Yes.
Okay,
That was
okay.
and in developing this myself, Ms. McLam, Mr. Fitzgerald, the director of purchasing, I think is his title, and Mr. Burnett sat down. I reviewed it with our academics folks, obviously, because they do contracts, significant contracts as well. So this is been reviewed by everybody.
One of the unintended consequences was that change orders, specifically a $400 change order, had to come back to the board. and it was still it was within the contract that we had with a contractor, so it didn't have to come back. But I like that you struck out the and change orders, but why did we strike that except the board is required, approval is required for contracts that would result in more than $100,000 being paid to the same vendor during the same fiscal year or any consecutive 12. I'm good with taking out change orders because that comes within the contract. But if
I had the same. I didn't like the taking out the 12-month piece on either paragraph.
I don't like the 10,000 piece, to be honest with you. So I will defer to the board because that is giving the principal the same authority as the superintendent. And I don't feel comfortable. I mean, I personally didn't feel comfortable with a principal having the same monetary leverage as a superintendent.
the superintendent's is 100,000,
Well, early,
right?
I thought there was a 10,000
Yep.
that that the superintendent or the designee of the superintendent did not have to come to the board, and now that's being also given to principals.
That's the settlement of $10,000 is the settlement authority. That's a different policy. Right. This is contracts, and this is only 10,000 for contracts.
So what kind of contracts?
It's still 10,000.
Right. The superintendent has the authority for $100,000 in contracts, but to settle a lawsuit, he has up to 10,000.
Correct.
Right.
And I understand that's a different policy, but
Right.
it just seemed odd to me that in one policy, the superintendent, if it's over 10,000, has to come to the board. And then in another policy, a principal would not have to come to the board up to 10,000. That just seemed like a lot of money to me.
Right. Well, if it's over 10, he'd have to come to the superintendent. I don't know, Shauna, did this language come from?
So it went from giving principals up to 5,000, and now we're giving principals up to 10,000. And so I just wanted someone to explain, why would a principal need up to $10,000 without approval?
Well, and what we've been doing is they have to get multiple quotes, but this language is changing at the federal level. We're trying to layer in state rules with the federal rules with all the federal funds we've had, and they're adjusting some of their thresholds, which we want our policy to mirror. So this is coming from state. So you layer in state and federal guidelines when we make some of these adjustments.
So you're saying that at the state level,
Yes.
from Raleigh,
The micro purchase
they
thresholds
give
are
principals,
adjusting.
or they recommend that principals be able to spend $10,000 without coming to the board.
What I'm saying is that the micro purchase threshold that they make us also follow is $10,000. So the state and federal laws or rules of procurement have changed to the point where with, advancing when we move the cost of things, that 10,000 threshold is more appropriate for where we are. The previous was in place for quite some time, so they adjusted that.
So would the $10,000 come back to the board, or does that go to Dr. Houlihan, or where does that go, or it doesn't? The principals can do up, and department levels heads can do up to $10,000.
All of their contracts if they are doing a contracted service agreement, they come through finance
Okay.
for pre-audit purposes and verification of funding.
Okay.
So the 100,000 threshold, is.
Comes to us.
Mhm.
Okay.
But we do have a lot of layered processes for procurement so that we do adhere to all the different rules of procurement based on state, federal, or local guidelines, just to ensure that even if you're crossing funding sources, that we've done our due diligence.
Dr. Houlihan, would you like to offer any input on this, especially since I'm struggling with a principal having that much authority and being able to spend as much money as you do on different settlements and stuff?
So on this one, the way I read this is, according to Ms. McLam, and kind of alignment, and let's just take a concrete example. So the ESSER dollars that are going to the board on Tuesday for approval. If a principal, as part of learning loss, wanted to hire contracted employees like tutors, right? approved tutors and they're using those funds to pay them, then they could go into contract with an individual for more than for up to 10,000, as opposed to 5,000. In the past, they would have to go through pre-approval for 5. Now, what this policy is saying that you could recommend that for 10. And I think what I'm hearing is that that's to allow for some more flexibility, to allow principals to make those decisions. My provision is 100,000. So, any contract that's 100,000 or above that's a district contract has to come to the board for approval. The way I interpret this is we used to give principals up to 5,000 of that a dollar amount to spend on professional development, like a consultant that you would hire to do professional development as an example, or to hire tutors up to that amount. I think what I'm hearing from Ms. McLam is the rules have changed from the federal and state to allow up to 10, and that's what she's recommending for this piece.
And Dr. Houlihan, can you speak to the 12-month piece as well? I mean, the way I read it, they could spend 10, turn around the next month and spend 10 more to the same vendor.
That's why the language is in there saying that you can't purposely divide contracts to avoid this.
I would like the purposely taken out.
Okay.
I don't care what their thought was. It just, you cannot do that.
That's fine. We can take that out.
The word purposely, there's no, I don't know what they're thinking when they're doing it, that they just shouldn't be doing it. Is that a way of saying it? Is that a way, is that a way of saying it? Purposely, I don't, yeah. That you cannot break up contracts to avoid the requirement of getting approval for over $100,000 in the prior paragraph or in this paragraph with respect to principals. So that's all. But I think that when I read this again, Todd, I think that red line on the first paragraph, that contracts are not to be divided to avoid this requirement, is saying the same thing as the 12-month thing. But yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I agree, but I do.
You like the 12-month
I think personally
thing.
we need a timestamp on it, both to protect both sides, purposely or not purposely, like you said.
Do we want to say 12 months or do we want to say school year? Do we want it to follow
School year.
the calendar
Yeah.
year, or
Yeah.
do we want to follow 12 months?
That's a good one. Yeah, school year.
I like school year.
I have no problem with it. I just want to point out that I'm concerned that it was important, and Ms. McLam was important to, especially Mr. Burnett, that language be removed, because that's part of what was the concern with the Sun Valley project, is that
The Sun Valley project was change orders. So the change orders are going to stay out. As long as they're in the contract, he can do change orders. He comes to he shows us at the facilities
Right.
meetings. We're good with the change orders. But we're talking about contracts. So
And principals don't handle change orders. If you're using the Sun Valley example.
I'm sorry, I was back up in the other paragraph.
Okay.
I'm confused. I apologize.
So
Just-
in the first paragraph, I'm good with it the way it's written now, except that the two committee men, all of us would like to add school year to it. But it should only be, change orders should come out. So change orders, you don't have to go back as long as it's within the contract and the money is still there within it. We had one come to us, it was $400, and they were waiting on it for us to approve it, but it was within the scope and within the budget of that contract. So it was okay. But I understand doing they shouldn't be able to divide things within a school year for one contract that would go to with respect to purchase orders and stuff.
So is the language you want me that contracts are not to be divided to avoid this requirement to the same vendor during the same?
School year,
Okay.
correct? Are we good with that? Yep.
Okay.
Purchase
Lamb, is
should,
that correct? That the change order was the problem? Okay.
And after 10,000, it says purchases, orders, it's just a typo, I'm sure.
Yes, it's purchase orders.
Okay.
I'm sorry. Thank you.
I'm sure it's just a typo.
And Michelle, just one question. It may not be this policy. If not, maybe we can bring the policy to committee at a future meeting. But how does this relate to booster clubs, bands, PTOs, those type clubs? I know we're getting a lot of emails recently about contracts and stuff being signed by different authorities outside of our control.
Yes, booster clubs enter into their own, and parent organizations enter into their own contracts. The district doesn't approve those or review those. They're responsible for their own contracting as a separate legal entity. Now, if they're going to raise money for the school, they have to have permission and approval from the principal for any fundraising activities that they do. And that's in the parent organization's policy.
It does say during the same fiscal year, which would be a school year, or any consecutive 12-month period. Why was that in there before? What was the consecutive thing being the problem? Being that they were splitting a contract in half by years? Is that what it was?
Well, yeah, the concern was that I could write a contract June 30th and a different one July 1st, and it
Okay.
wouldn't get caught.
So why'd we take that out?
That was the recommendation I was given. I can put it back in. It doesn't matter to me. I serve at the pleasure of the board.
I think that would be good. And I just want to clarify, if a principal or department head spends 10,000 or under, can that be put into a report for the board to just have knowledge of, even if it's on consent or information? I would like to have that information.
So we currently have a process where anytime, even with the 10,000, even us increasing that, there is a contract process. So they are signing the terms and conditions. We have
Who is
really
they?
the principal, the category we're talking about.
To
Yes,
clarify that
principals.
you were still
any
referring to principals or
school-funded-
department head.
Yeah, any school funded contracts, any district contracts, anyone that is contracting a service for any reason is coming through my office. It's all coming through. We verify the funding source. A lot of what we're talking about here is funding that they have at the school level. So we'd be glad to try to put together some reporting. We don't have, it's not in our current system. It's a separate system. So we can do whatever you all would like to see, but just know that this goes through a process, even if it was to be $3,000. If it's a contracted service, it's coming through my office for verification of funding and review of any terms so that we're not committing to anything that would be outside of what the board would want us to be.
Yeah, and the policy says
Yes.
that. So
So,
we we understood it went through a process.
And I think that all of this could be taken care of, but I'm going to have to think about this
Mhm.
more. That we could have just said with the exception of change orders or something.
Right.
I view change orders as something
Completely different.
something completely different. But maybe I'm thinking of it wrong.
Yeah. And I think that's why, we keep talking about Mr. Burnett. And so I feel like that again is change orders, and we always talk about change orders in facilities. So, we could either go with your recommendation
Or I mean,
what you just said. We could keep it the same, but just take with the exception of change orders, or stay with the current red line.
Or we can make note of this conversation and go back and ask staff kind of the impact, because I think that's what
yeah,
Michelle's
I think I'm
asking
good with
is.
it moving on to the full
Mhm.
board so we can continue to do this, because I assume that we want to make changes for the school year. So we can,
Well, it'll come back for second review.
Right,
So, I mean,
right.
we've got time to,
and maybe I'm wrong, but I thought that the biggest issue was change orders.
And that makes sense to me, change orders.
Okay.
is the pleasure of this committee. And Todd, do we want it in there that, that this should be for information to the board with each agenda, like some of the other information we get at the bottom?
Yeah, and it says they have to notify us monthly of all revisions to approved contracts or any changes to the scope of a contract.
I know, but I've never seen that monthly. I've
Well,
never,
we get it in that's new, but we
Mhm.
get that in facilities for
Uh-huh.
change order.
but we don't get it for,
Correct.
spit,
Correct.
curriculum.
Right, that's a new provision because I wanted to make sure the board was
Mhm.
aware of
I
those
like that
changes.
provision. But
It was an
in
attempt to
facilities, we
yeah.
do it now.
Make sure you have more information.
Okay.
And, you know, I know this is not the same policy, but going back to the one where the superintendent can do settlements up to 10,000, I would like to see that information monthly too, so that the board is aware, not verbally, but, you know, we have it.
Yeah, anytime we
What
settle,
every settlement up to 10,000.
yeah, every time it happens, we do put it in the FYI section of the
Okay.
board. You don't see it often because it doesn't happen often.
Yeah, because I'm like, I can't remember the last time I
no.
saw that.
Superintendent probably can't remember the last time he's
Mhm.
authorized it. It's been
Mhm.
that long.
Okay. And I know we get updates from you every month, but I just thought, well, if we're going to do a monthly update, let's make sure that the board has that information each month.
Now I can do, as opposed to only doing it when it
Mhm.
happens, I can do a cases settled, none, if that would,
Oh.
if you'd like that.
Nah, if it's not on there, we'll know that none happened. I mean, how does everyone else feel? Okay,
I'm good with that.
okay.
Any further discussion on 219?
So we're going to send this to the full board for first review.
Yes, if that's the pleasure of the committee.
So moved.
Second,
All those in favor?
aye.
Next up is policy 3-2A, employee code of ethics and standards of conduct.
Good, yes. This policy is for your review today based on the action of the board at the last meeting.
And with that, I'll open it for comments.
Okay. I would like to just, I think that there's been some misinterpretation of what we're trying to do here. So I'm going to start by reading what's already in our policy that goes the paragraph before the red line. It says this policy should not be construed as prohibiting the impartial study and discussion of political or other controversial issues in the classroom setting. However, employees must be mindful of their responsibility to deliver the curriculum of the school system and may not present their personal political views to students in the classroom or when otherwise engaged in the instruction of students. Teachers will always present political and civic issues without personal bias and with reasonable effort to present all sides of the issue. We are not trying to change history or stop history being taught. All of history should be taught. Everything, the good, the bad, and the ugly should be taught. That is not what this is about. This is about talking to students about students being responsible for things that happened 100 years ago, 50 years ago, 200 years ago. That's what this is about. This is not about teaching history. History is what it is, and it needs to be taught the way it happened. But that's not what we are saying here. We're saying that you can't make people feel bad because people made it so people couldn't vote or things like that. That's what this is about. So I think that the emails that we've been getting, I think people just don't understand what we're talking about. And that I'm going to just leave it there. But I would like to make a change that I saw where somebody else did, that instead of UCPS employees shall not promote the following perhaps I'd like to put it in a better tone, that UCPS employers shall promote the following concepts. And then you would put nots in some of the things. So one race or sect is not inherently superior to another race or sex. An individual solely by virtue of his or her race or sex is not inherently racist, sexist, or oppressive, whether consciously or unconsciously. An individual shall not be discriminated against or receive adverse treatment solely or partly because of his or her race or sex. An individual's moral character is not determined, I don't like the word necessarily, not determined by his or her race or sex. And then the next one would be no individual solely by virtue of his or her race or sex bears responsibility for actions committed in the past by other members of the same race or sex. The next one, no individual solely by the virtue of his or her race or sex should feel discomfort, guilt, anguish, or any other form of psychological distress. Then the next one, that the belief that the United States is a meritocracy is not an inherently racist or sexist belief, or that the United States was not created by members of particular race or sex for the purpose of oppressing members of another race. And that is what, and I'll leave it at that, but I just wanted to clarify because we have been being told that we're not going to be able to teach history, and that's just not the truth. History is what it is, but you can't make people feel bad about stuff that happened 200 years ago.
I'll just say that I really like the change of tone that you have offered here, and making it more positive instead of a negative tone. I really like what you just said. And I just want to reiterate that, this policy has been around since 1993 with, minor revisions and updates from the state and maybe even the federal level. And these bullets here just reinforce what was already in the policy. It was already in the policy.
That policy, that paragraph that I read first, says it.
Mhm.
This just gives examples of it.
Yeah.
Madam Chair, my question.
And I just want to clarify, I'm not the chair of this committee,
well,
so please address Mr.
Yes,
Price.
He was invisible. I couldn't see him. He's Casper the Friendly Price. Mr. Price. So my question, and I hear what you're saying, Kathy, and can I get an example of what was presented? Give me an example of how that looks to individuals. An example of what is on this paper, not the corrections that you made, or whoever. I mean, I would really like
A
the
real life
individual.
example.
I would like the
So-
individual who made the proposal to give me an example since they made it. But give.
I think.
From this recommendation that was given at our last board meeting,
Yes.
I would like to know what would be an example of what this would look like.
Okay, so for example, in history, women didn't have the right to vote, right? And men were the people in government that were making the laws that said women couldn't vote. But you can't tell, so you can teach that and you can teach all of that, but you can't tell the boys in the classroom that they're responsible for the reason that women couldn't vote for so many years. That's my example.
Okay, give me the example, if you could, if anybody. The last bullet. Can I get an example of that?
I'll turn it back on you. What do you not like about it?
No, I asked a question.
Well, I'm
No,
asking it back.
I mean, it's kind of. I was always taught you don't ask a question with a question.
I think that
They're two fair questions Two
Right.
fair questions.
Well, let me get mine answered first and then I'll answer. And it doesn't have to be you. It can be.
Well, okay, so I'll interject here and say that there has been a lot of conversations for the past year and a half that the United States is systemically racist. And speaking for myself, I do not believe that this country is systemically racist. I think that we have made too much progress to all of a sudden in the past year and a half to change language in the classroom to from someone that's in authority, an adult, to a minor, where that minor has been taught at home that their character and if they're trustworthy and honest and if they work hard in school, that their sex and their skin color does or does not matter. And then they come into the classroom and their parents have taught them that if they work hard in school and if they're an honest citizen and they don't cheat, lie, steal, and hurt their classmates, or cheat on a test, cheat on the teacher's test, that if they're doing all those things, but all of a sudden they're hearing from an authority figure, their teacher, who controls their grades, controls what grade they get on a test, a quiz, homework, a paper, which is completely subjective, in all honesty, that now that teacher, if a student was raised to think that the content of their character is more important in the classroom and in the community, and now all of a sudden, an authority figure, a principal, a coach, a PTO volunteer, someone in the booster club after school, has now impressed upon them that because they're male or female, they can't do something, or because they're white, Asian, Indian, or biracial, or because their mom or dad is one race or their mom or dad is another race, that they should feel one way about their mother of a different race or their father of a different race. And then you've got the whole situation with adoption. What if you have, parents of one race that adopted a child of a completely different race, but the parents have always told them, you are my child, regardless of your skin color, or sexual identity or whatever. But then they get into the classroom and an authority figure has told them completely opposite of what their mother or father has told them. That's how I read it.
All right. So I have looked at this since it was first proposed, and I have read it, and I try to be a very open-minded individual. And as I said at one of our previous board meetings, curriculum meetings, that I don't believe that when we talk and have these conversations that we are saying that every white person at this table is racist, or every white person who is a part of this world or this community is racist. That's not what we're saying. But what is being said is there is a structure and there has been a corrupt society that we are all a part of. And the truth of the matter is, if we do not teach history properly and do not deal with what has happened, that it will continue to repeat itself again. It is very important that parents teach their children to be successful, do the right thing. Absolutely. But there is a system, if we want to recognize it or not, that has for many, many years and is continuing to be in place, that its objective is to suppress and to control individuals of color, individuals who are not maybe individuals' preference or what have you. And so when we teach this and we teach this right, and again, I continue to say, teach this right. And I've been insulted and have been emailed about my stance as a pastor that I should not even promote this. But it's amazing that people want to pull up my preacher card when if we teach history right, then we can look at how during slavery, the preacher was the one that used the Bible to keep people of color enslaved. So people who bring that up, they don't even know me, and they just know that I'm a pastor. But if you sit down and talk with me, you'll understand where I come from. And so my issue is that we're trying to water down what needs to be taught. Again, a teacher who teaches history properly, it will not cause us to be divided. It will not point the finger at a specific individual within that classroom. But we use examples and we use what has happened so that we will be able, as the human race, not to repeat it again. And the reason why I believe that some of us are trying to, and they may not even be around this table, and I believe that some may not even be around this table or even in this room, that the reason why so many are trying to water down this is because some people do not want the truth to be told. America has done some shady things and continues to do some shady things and some things that are not right. And it has to be taught. It has to be dealt with. And the reason why so many people do not understand it is because their reality will never be my reality. Your reality will never be the reality of a black man, of a black woman, of a Hispanic man or a Hispanic woman, or of a woman. Your reality will never be that. So when we talk about this and we talk about what has happened and what continues to happen, it comes from a place of this is the reality of our country. Is it right? No, it's not right at all. It should, in 2021, we should not have to be having these conversations and dealing with this. But I believe that.
I'm sorry, I was hearing something.
I believe that what we're trying to do, and I see exactly what the corrections that you made, Kathy, and I understand exactly what you're saying.
But I did say that people have to learn history.
Right. But people don't want, and I hear you. God knows I do. And I appreciate your truthfulness and I appreciate your sincerity. But there are people who do not want history to be taught at all. They do not want the truth to be taught at all because they feel as though it is saying that whites are the suppressors and blacks are the ones that are suppressed. And that's not that is not what is being taught. And that is not what we want to be taught. So I don't know where that comes from, but the truth of the matter is, in history, that is accurate. That is true. That whites were the suppressors and blacks were suppressed. Absolutely. But we do not have to continue that in 2021 if we teach it the right way. Teach it the right way. But a lot of these opposition is coming from individuals who do not want. I say, I appreciate you, and I know exactly I feel your heart. And I know you are coming from a sincere place, but I know that the individuals who propose this right here, they are trying to eliminate it. Because if they wanted history to be taught and all of it to be taught and that it needed to be taught, then this wording would not have even been, because this is pretty much saying, we don't want to hear this, we don't want to hear this, we don't want to hear this, we don't want to hear that.
I think, again, that it's looking as today, not looking at history in the past. I don't think anybody is trying to say that we should change history and teach it a different way. I think this is looking today.
You may not, but there are many who do.
But this is where we're coming from.
And I'm hoping that we're coming from that same sincere place that you're coming from.
One of the things that I was thinking about adding was that the United States of America is comprised of persons whom are all created equally. And that's what I think.
I like that. And I would recommend
should
that for the
promote that.
I think that should be
All
the.
the time. That's what I'm
All-
saying. We
all
should
the-
add that
we
as a
should.
bullet.
I think that should be the very first one.
Okay.
The very first one. Can you say that again?
Just that it would be that the United States of America is comprised of persons whom are created, all created equally. It's
Again,
whom,
but-
not that,
But
right?
again, that in a perfect world, yes, but that is not the reality.
But we're asking our employees to promote that.
Okay,
So
so
I guess I don't I guess I'm a little bit confused myself.
I guess the reason why, because what they're saying here is Union County Public School employees shall not
No, I
promote.
changed it to
Right,
shall promote.
I'm talking about what
Okay,
they gave,
okay.
not what you said,
Okay.
but what they presented. Okay. The conversations that they presented. And I even wanted to get in on one of those conversations, but in one of those groups, but I couldn't get in and what have you, because it was like invitation only or something like that. Because I would love to talk to them and understand what they're saying.
Okay, I want to interject right now. This language did not come from a group. This language
I'm not saying it
came
came
from
from
a
a group,
board member
but
that
what I
was
am saying
recommended
it's a
to the
part
full
of
board.
Well, and it
conversation.
And the language actually came from a House bill.
House Bill
But
3.
it's a part of conversation. It's as if I
I
had a
think the
group.
conversation, in all fairness,
Okay.
in all fairness, this language came from House Bill 324 and was recommended by Mr. Gary Sides. It came straight from House Bill 324. And once House Bill 324 was introduced back in May, that is how Mr. Sides put it here. And then groups started talking about it, but it did not originate in a group.
I
And
did not say
Okay.
it originated from a group.
I just wanted,
I said that a group, I would like to have conversation because I know that there is group having conversation about it, and I would love to be a part of it. But because I am not able to be a part of the group, I can't have conversation. I know that this was not promoted by a specific group in Monroe, Charlotte, wherever.
Okay, John, I think that also I should have mentioned this before. The definition of promote below is helpful as well. Compelling students, teachers, administrators or other school employees to affirm and profess belief in the concepts described in the subsection of this policy, including concepts described in that. I mean, I think that the definition of promote is not what you're saying. That
I saw
that's
it.
where.
I'm
Okay.
saying what I'm saying is we can change the wording all day long, but there is an agenda behind this proposition. And
I
what you
think there's
said,
also an agenda that America is systemically racist
I-
and the
I- no,
land
no, no,
of
no.
inopportunity.
well, no, I don't think it's an agenda behind that. That's the reality. And just because it may not be you, but there has been a structure and a culture that has been created within this country that proves that this country is systemic racism. We ain't even got to bring CRT into this conversation. It's just the reality of what has happened. So my thing is, and what I am saying, and what I will continue to say, what you said, Kathy, I agree. The changes that you made, absolutely. Okay. I don't believe any teacher is trying to promote division in a classroom. I don't believe that. But as I've often said, anything in the hands of the wrong person can be contaminated. Anything. So making sure that this information and history is given, or I'm looking at the bottom, contracting with, hiring, or otherwise engaging speakers, consultants, diversity trainers, and other persons for the purpose of advocating concepts described in the above section. I don't believe anybody would come in here and try to destroy the mind of a child and making them think that what their parent has taught them about treating people right and what have you. But the reality is even though you may teach your children to be successful and be and develop and do the right thing, there is still some opposition that has to be dealt with. And a lot of us don't want to deal with it. A lot of us don't want to deal with it. And it's sad that we so many of us are blinded by what is the reality of this great country. Even though it may be great, my grandmother, my grandfather are two of the greatest people I know. But I know that because they are human, they are made up of error. We're not saying that America is not a great country, but we are saying that there is some error and some things that need to be dealt with. And what we're seeing now in 2021 is a repeat of a lot of things. And there is a very, very disheartening agenda that is put in place. And again, I continue to say it, there's some people over the top on both sides. I say that all the time. But making sure that those changes that you made and those corrections, okay, as long as we're going to stick with making sure that history is taught and not allowing other people to influence an undercover agenda that is purposed and assigned to make sure history is not taught right, I'm cool with those corrections. But I won't approve this. I won't approve this until it's sent back with the proper corrections.
Well, and that's why we're here today. So,
So you want to see.
so we can approve this with your corrections, and I'll go through the correct, because I've made corrections as Kathy was reading. First off, well, the very first bullet should be the United States is comprised.
The United States of America is comprised of persons, and I believe that whom are all created
Equally.
Say who should. Can it say be who
But
should?
Whoever is an English major can correct me. It's comprised comprised of persons who are all created equally.
Okay,
Can it say
So
who should be?
I don't know about should, because that says that they may or may not be
Well, that's
equal.
the truth.
No, I don't like
Oh.
should.
Okay.
I think everyone's created equally.
Oh, and yeah, in God's eyes we are.
Mhm.
But when it comes to society, that's not always accurate.
Mhm. So I recommend that for the first bullet. In the second bullet, well, first off, let's say that Union County Public Schools shall promote the following concepts. That's the first revision. Then we have a new first bullet. Then the second bullet, one race or sex is not inherently superior. Boom, boom, boom. Third bullet, an individual solely by virtue of his or her race or sex is not inherently racist. Then the next one says an individual shall not be discriminated against. Next bullet, an individual's moral character is not necessarily determined.
Necessarily.
Oh, yes. You know what? I struck that out on my notes. Yes. Take out necessarily. So I'm going to read that again. An individual's moral character is not determined by his or her race or sex. Next bullet. No individual solely by virtue of his or her race or sex. Next bullet. No individual solely by virtue of his or her race or sex. Last bullet, that the belief of the United States as a meritocracy is not an inherently racist or sexist belief, or that the United States was created by members of a particular race or sex for the purpose, was not created by members of a particular race or sex for the purpose of oppressing members of another race or sex. So I make a motion that we make those changes and modifications and recommend to the full board with these changes at the August 3rd meeting.
Send us a copy of them. Thank you very much. Those are all.
Those are all my comments.
I've got a motion. Do I hear a second?
I made the motion.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All those against?
Nay.
So this will go to the full board with revisions. next board meeting. That moves us to policy 4-8, child abuse and related threats to a child.
Yes, this policy, the revision is, there's one slight revision and, well, I changed it from child abuse and related threats to child because that didn't make sense to me. So I changed it to children. And then if you look at the last page, it's 4 or 5, but it's the last substantive page. It's a requirement under some changes in state board policy of something that we have to report.
I move that we send policy 4-8 to the full board for first review.
So moved.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Next takes us to 4-11, student wellness.
Okay. These changes were based on some changes in state law. And I think, again, it's the requirement of the school system mental health plan, which went to the SPTT this morning. And so this is just the change to add in policy that which is now required by state board policy.
I have a question, and I'm just confused. I know I
Okay.
am, but so by September 15th of each year, the district, Dr. Houlihan has to report to DPI. And then on the next page, it says the board will review the components of the school system's mental health plan at least every 5 years, starting August 1, 2025.
Yes.
So is it September or
No, he has to report in September every year. The plan is a 5-year plan. And so,
Right.
it shifts every August 1st, but the report is then later because it gives him time to have that change.
so the,
This is straight from their policy.
okay, sorry.
We didn't pick the dates.
Okay. I'm like, what?
Yeah.
Okay.
And again, this came from the state?
State.
This is State Board of Education Policy SHLT-003.
Okay, I see that.
So I move that we send the changes to 4-11 to the full board for first review.
So moved.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Next takes us to 5-3, counseling.
Okay. These changes were made in part based on some of the work that's been done in our counseling department in response to some recent reports, and then just updating things that we just didn't have that were missing and clarifying and organizing.
So I have a question about academic advising, and this is one of the things that we've talked about included in our CAC diversity update. Is this where we're going to have parents and students be with?
Yeah. So, and we may want to modify this a little bit. So one of the things we've talked about was we historically do a relatively good job of letting rising ninth graders know what they have access to in high school. Program of studies, course options. We typically have our high school expo for kids to come and look at all of our different choice options, CTE academies. But one of the areas of improvement that we've recognized and we've talked about is also engaging families in those discussions. So we've talked about offering parents of rising ninth graders the chance with your child in the spring of this coming school year, if you're interested in having a session with a counselor to talk about your child's goals, interests, course pathway, and to complete maybe like a 4-year kind of high school plan of action. The missing gap has been that engagement with on the parental side. I know as a parent of a rising ninth grader, sitting with him to try to fill out his enrollment information, it was
Same here.
yeah,
Not fun.
it's a bit grueling. And so we thought that an area of improvement could be to get parents a little bit more informed on that process before you even have to submit that information, and to do this in the spring.
I think it's a great idea to get the parents and the students involved with the counselors, because sometimes, and I know they're busy, but it's hard for some students, especially rising ninth graders, to know what pathway they want to go. And we give them the program of studies, but that's a lot for them to look through. and I think that it would be helpful. Like, what are your interests? What would you like to do? What schools are you thinking about you want to go to? If you're thinking about, because there are students who are thinking right now in 8th grade where they want to go to college. So this will help you get there if that's what you want to do. These classes, you should start this now. And I think that that's been a little bit of a gap for us.
And I love the expo pre-COVID. I believe it was it held at the Ag Center or Wingate University?
Or maybe one year is maybe at South Piedmont,
SPC.
SPCC. It's been in multiple places.
So since that's been announced, I just want to make sure that post-COVID that we might want to even take that like on a tour of schools for students that don't have transportation on the weekend to get to those events, or figure out at those schools if there are any students that want to attend that weekend event and don't have transportation or a parent or legal guardian that can take them, that we provide a shuttle bus or something to offer that.
Or maybe if you could get to your home school on that morning, we can provide the transportation from there. We'll
Yeah.
continue to explore
So
that.
I know that's off subject, but since that was brought up, I just want to plant that seed with you that post-COVID, we had a lot of parents and students show up for that last expo.
Sure did.
So that students could learn about IB in Union County Public Schools, programs at CATA that they could apply the lottery process.
CTE.
CTE,
and tech
firefighting
and-
offered
yeah.
here, veterinarian tech offered there. I truly believe, according to the emails and parent communications that I see in the county, parents don't know that we offer these vocational trades. And so that's why, I want to just plant the seed with the superintendent that there are students in our district that may not have the legal guardian or parent to help them through this process, and may very well get on a shuttle bus if we provide it to get them to the expo or whatever, or bring the expo to them.
It's the recommendation that in the sentence prior to 9th grade that I add students and families will be informed about the course requirements.
Yes, please.
Thank you.
On the next, safe surrender.
I'm
law.
so sorry,
Oh,
Kathy.
sorry.
Can you define guiding adults for me? Is that legal guardian or teachers or coaches or who? What is a guiding adult?
Principal, APs. I
Yeah.
guess I thought that
We
too.
can, yeah.
I started thinking last night.
It wasn't my language.
Okay.
But I can put school counselors and other staff in
Yes,
middle and high
school
schools.
staff. Yeah,
Got
that'd
it.
be awesome.
Because then I mean, my brain as a parent immediately went to legal guardian. So I didn't know if we needed to include that because, parents may not be able to participate in the registration process and we would need a legal guardian.
Next page. So this is all from the state, so we have to do this.
The safe surrender?
Yeah.
Yes.
and that's
part of our
The schools
student
have
handbook every
the
year.
school has become everything
Yeah.
to any.
And that's, when
What?
did that start? My question is,
When did we
that start?
become everything to fit?
I thought you were asking me a question with the safe surrender law. It's not just one.
Okay, I have no other questions on this. So I move that we send policy 5-3 to the full board for first review.
So moved.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Next, bring us to policy 6-5, law enforcement involvement on campus.
There was that only.
Yeah,
that
there's
little
just,
change,
one little change based on state regulation about reporting certain things to Department of
That's it.
Public Instruction.
So
And-
again, this came from the state.
Yeah,
Yeah.
state law
So
changes.
I move that we send policy 6-5, formerly 4-10, to the full board for first review.
So moved.
All those in favor say aye.
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 I apologize for the weird numbering on some of them. We're in the process of shifting over the And so if people are looking in one place, I want them to be able to sure they can find it.
Gotcha. And last policy for first review is policy 1-2, public participation at board meetings.
So is this, so I know the wait list and the board making it authorized to go to a total of 60 minutes has been a little bit difficult because people won't know if they're going to be able to speak and all that. I would like to see it that if there's a wait list, that automatically the additional 30 minutes kicks in.
Meaning the board wouldn't have, that
wouldn't
if
have to
there's a
vote.
wait list,
If the wait
We
list,
wouldn't
they
have
would
to
know
vote
you're
on
on
it.
the wait list, but that would be that extra 30 minutes would go. So
So it would automatically move to additional 30 minutes without a vote.
or,
Right.
yeah, up to 60
So
minutes.
in number 2 on page 2, I would move up the first sentence should be the sign up list will be limited by the initial 30 minutes time allotted speed. A wait list will be collected, period, and then say that an additional time frame, if there is a wait list, the additional time frame will be not to
Will
exceed
be.
a total of 60 minutes for public comments.
And do you want that
They
prior
did
to,
not to exceed 60 minutes.
Yes, 60 minutes.
is that prior to the speakers will also be allowed to speak at the meeting or after that?
I think you should start with that, right?
Start with that.
Okay, so I'm gonna,
Say speakers will also be allowed to sign up okay, no, that's the end, because that's people, if there's room, they
All right.
can, right.
so it'll be the third sentence, a sign up list, a wait list will be collected. In the event that a wait list exists, the public comment period will be extended to a maximum of 60 minutes.
Yes.
Okay.
And I also wanted to talk about number 4, citizens who sign up to address the board. I would like to have a discussion about citizens and who are citizens, what citizens are we referring to? Citizens of the United States, citizens of another country, citizens of California, citizens of North Carolina, or citizens of Union County. So I would like to recommend that residents of Union County will get preference on the wait list. Now, citizens outside of Union County can sign up and be on the list, but citizens of Union County will get to speak first before citizens outside of Union County. So I just want to make that recommendation.
And Melissa, I like that. I believe we're going to a online sign up. How are we looking to, I guess, verify where they're from? Are we allowed to ask for IDs or verify IDs or?
They currently have to provide their phone number and address. And if they don't, then maybe they would be moved down on the list if they don't provide this information. But I also recommend that they could be employees within, like employees of Union County Public Schools, but live in Anson County, Stanley County. And so I think on the sign-up sheet going forward, they would either have to check that they are a parent within Union County Public Schools or an employee of Union County Public Schools, which means they don't have to live here.
Do they have to be a parent? Or can it just be?
Oh, yeah,
They can be resident. They have to
exactly,
be a
exactly.
resident, right?
So, yeah,
Okay.
excellent
Sorry.
point.
I just wanted to
So
make sure.
resident of Union County or employee of Union County Public Schools, because we obviously want to hear from our teachers or anyone that works within Union County. I mean, we have cabinet staff that doesn't live in Union County. So I think they are either on that checklist so that they get their position in Q, they're either a Union County citizen, resident, or Union County Public Schools employee or other. But they have they have to provide their phone number and address like they always had. That is not new. But if they don't provide their phone number and address, then they may not get called on.
I have a
Who's
question.
responsible for looking up where the address is in Union County?
Well, what I can tell you is we've developed an online platform that was discussed in SPTT today. And what it currently has is that you won't even get put into the queue if you haven't input your name, address, telephone
Okay, there you
number,
go.
and the reason for speaking.
I know, since I've been on the board since 2014, I know that in the past, we've had a lot of speakers that did not fill that out. So I just wanted to make sure that on the new online portal that they understand that has to be provided.
So
Yeah, it will kick them out. They won't even get put on the list if
And
they
is
don't
that
fill that.
state statute? That comes from the state that for public comments, you have to provide phone number and address? Or has that just always,
I think that's been our
that's just
process.
always been Union County Public Schools policy?
So-
Okay.
So again, who's going to look up the addresses to make sure that they're in Union County? Would be, and you're just talking about a preference of those people would go first, and then people who are outside of the county could speak if there's, if there's
Time remaining.
time remaining.
Right.
Thank you.
So,
There's another category, I'm sorry,
No,
the
go
people
ahead.
that I recommend you add if you're going to go down this route, and I'm not making any comment about going down this route. What about if my child goes to Union County Public Schools, but I'm not a resident? For example, I'm divorced and my child is a student, but I live in Mecklenburg County and my child lives with my ex.
So we
So it
could
would
add
be
parents. to it,
resident,
like you said,
employee,
parents,
parent, okay.
Parents. And what was the other one?
I've
So
resident,
I have
employee,
six. I have
parent.
a parent in and out of the county. I have an employee in and out of the county. I have a student, and I have a resident.
So I have a question, because I kind of know where this conversation has sparked up again. We talked about it once before in reference to our town hall meeting, because some people had screenshotted what I posted. So, and if you look at the screenshot, it says that District 1, but no one would be turned away. So no parent was turned away. And the reason for us having that sign-up sheet was to see those parents that came that represented the district. They had an opportunity to come and involve themselves within the conversation, but wanted to see what was the representation. It had nothing to do with public comments or what have you. So if we're going to be specific with that, what if you don't even have a child in Union County Public Schools?
But you're a resident, but you're a taxpayer.
Right. So my question is, I understand what you're saying about the taxpayer component, but I know what we're trying to do, trying to flush out and what have you.
We're not flushing out because we're still allowing them to sign up.
But-
We're just saying
right.
that we're going to prioritize parents, employees, and taxpayers.
But I understand what you're saying, but we already know from the past meetings that we've had, an hour, that's still not enough for all of the people who sign up, because people are signing up probably every day to be on a meeting. So,
And in all fairness, we have allowed in the past couple of meetings, residents from Mecklenburg County. We've allowed residents from South Carolina. And we've allowed all of that. And we're saying that we will continue to allow that. But we want to hear from the people that are giving
I agree.
65% of their taxes to this school district.
absolutely.
You know,
I get it.
parents, employees, like I mentioned, we have cabinet staff that doesn't live in
Right,
Union
right.
County. We want to hear from them because they're in the
Absolutely.
schools and they
I
see
agree.
it.
Yes, ma'am.
So we're going to hear from them. We've always heard from them, but we absolutely we don't want to waste our 60 minutes on someone that really doesn't have skin in the game in Union County Public Schools. I mean, I was shocked that people from South Carolina were coming to our meetings.
So it would be residents, employees, and parents. Is that,
And students.
and students, sorry, students. So they would be prioritized, but anybody else could sign up.
And the parents and the employees could live in and out of Union County.
Is there anything in statute that says that it has to be everybody, or is there anything out there? And I know this is not closed session.
There's nothing in statute which says one way or the other. It says that we have to have a public comments period. The only thing that I would remind is that your local funding is not your only source of funding. You get federal dollars and state dollars, and so.
And that's why we're not eliminating
Right.
anyone. And I did seek outside counsel from Shatley and Campbell just to confirm that for you, Reverend Kirkpatrick, I want you to know that there were so many complaints and emails about your District 1 that I did talk to our approved outside attorney. He said that what you're doing is perfectly okay.
I was told by, I think we had that conversation.
Mhm.
And so
And s-
you said complaints. I would not have done it without approval.
Sure.
Right.
But I just want you to know that our outside attorney said that it's perfectly okay because one person on the board is not representing the board. One board member does not represent the board. And that the language you used was perfectly okay.
Yes, ma'am.
And as the board chair, it is my duty to use our legal counsel that when we receive complaints to confirm that it's okay or not okay. And I just want to let you know that it's perfectly okay.
Tell them I said thank you.
You're very welcome, but that's the outside attorney. And in that conversation, they also said that what we talked about and recommended today is perfectly okay.
Let me, if I could, the next one is Monday. So if they would like to come, tell them to feel free. 600 East Franklin Street.
I'm sure they'll come.
Any other comment on policy 1-12? If
No.
not, I'll entertain a motion to move it to the full board at the next board meeting.
So moved.
Per the changes, second.
Can I review those
All right,
just to
with
make sure?
modifications, correct.
Yes, wait.
All those in favor say aye.
Wait, hold on.
Yep.
Ms. Morris would like to review, just to make sure we got it right.
So paragraph 2 is going to read, the first sentence will be struck, and then it's going to start, the sign-up list will be limited by the initial 30-minute time allotted to speakers. A wait list will be collected, and speakers can attend the meeting in the event that the board extends.
Not Jan.
No, can attend the meeting. I'm glad we did that. Be collected. In the event that a wait list exists, a maximum of 60 minutes will be authorized.
Yep.
Speakers will be allowed to sign up at the meeting. Residents, parents, students, and employees of the district will receive priority on the list of speakers. Is that correct?
Allowed to sign up. Do we want to just say sign up at the meeting, or are we going to include the new portal, or just sign up at the meeting?
September is what I heard at this meeting. So
I know, I'm just trying to clarify because not everyone's signing up at the meeting. Most of them are signing up through ahead of time.
I think
So,
what-
It just says speakers will also be allowed to sign up at the meeting.
okay, also
If-
allowed. Okay, okay.
If available.
That's like if you
If we say
don't have
available,
access to the technology or the portal and you just show up and want to speak.
I heard it sign up at the meeting,
Yeah.
so
Yeah,
as long
we'll
as it
also be
says
allowed.
also. Okay.
We can't prohibit them from signing up. They just may not get to the wait
Okay,
list.
okay. Okay, did I second that?
Yeah, you had a second.
Yes.
I was in the comments part.
Yes, okay.
Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Next up for discussion is House Bill 91, Accountability and Fair Play for Athletics.
So this is still going through Senate, right? It has not been passed by the Senate yet?
That's correct.
I And-
sent you the most recent version, yes.
Okay, and the House hasn't passed on it yet, correct? Even though it's they used an old House bill.
They used,
Okay,
they
okay.
used to have.
Okay. I just wanted to know where we were in the process of this.
Yeah, I've sent you the most recent version of it in the documents for the meeting. And I know one of the concerns was I know one of the concerns was the eligibility of homeschool athletes to play on district teams. And right now that has been sent to committee, or the language in the bill is that it will be put in a study committee. And I think they have to report by April of 2022. So that would not be, even if this passes, part of this year's eligibility criteria.
So I know this is for discussion, and I think the purpose of it being discussion is that I think this committee and I think our board needs to be aware that the legislators in Raleigh are discussing, and it's still on the table, to allow homeschool students to take spots away on teams, and I can see this a slippery slope to be clubs, after school, leadership. They might even come and want to take over our student government. So I want all of us to be aware and follow House Bill 91, and please reach out to all of our legislators that it is impossible for the leadership in Union County Public Schools to monitor the grades, the performance, the attendance, whether they're in block 1, 2, or 3, or 4, because Union County Public Schools monitors our athletes. And we know if they were present in the classroom for at least 2 blocks a day. We do not have that ability to monitor if a homeschool student skips, takes a job at Chick-fil-A, is babysitting their siblings, or if a parent or legal guardian is even at home during the day to monitor a homeschool student. So this is very concerning to me as a former public school athlete, parent of public school athletes. This is very concerning to me that a homeschool athlete that will not be held to the same measurement as a Union County Public School athlete is extremely alarming to me. And I encourage every Union County Public School athlete, parent of an athlete, legal guardian of an athlete, to reach out to the legislators in Raleigh to watch House Bill 91 and the members in Raleigh that are leading this House bill, to let them know that it is near to impossible to verify academics, performance, progress, if they're being tutored, and to really even know what their GPA is. So I am begging this committee and student athletes, principals, our athletic directors, everyone, to please make your voices heard if you support this or don't support this. I do not support this, and I've already reached out to our representatives and senators for Union County, and I will continue to voice that a Union County public school athlete someone on the field or on the bench should be allowed to have that seat before someone that does not have skin in the game in Union County Public Schools. And this is a discussion, so anyone else is, is welcome to chime in if they disagree with me or not.
This has come up before at this committee with the North Carolina High School Athletic Association. And we've talked about it, and I agree with your sentiments. And we made it so that homeschoolers could not participate in sports for those reasons. And we heard from principals about that at that time. So,
and make no mistake, there are athletic programs in Union County for homeschool athletes. There's opportunity out there. It does not have to take away a spot from someone who is enrolled in Union County Public Schools. Every sport I have played, every sport my children have played, I've seen homeschool athletes participating. They can participate as individuals. They can participate through programs that are open to homeschool athletes. And I don't know why this keeps coming up in Raleigh. And I'm going to fight it. I'm going to reach out to everyone in Raleigh that I can. I don't know why they keep bringing this back.
Melissa, Kathy, I agree with you both. I am very much against the bill. And Melissa, I do agree with you that I think this is a slippery slope in the fact that it's opening doors for homeschool children to get into our schools and other areas, being student government, clubs, band, you name it. So I stand with you. And
next they're going to want us to provide bus transportation to get them to practice and to the game. So I absolutely, everyone needs to know that this House bill continues to come back and continues to take up our time and be a burden on our shoulders. And at some point, we need to have the local authority to run our schools and our students and our teams and the kids and the students that come in before school, after school, the weekends, their summers, training to wear our jerseys and that's another code of ethics. When they're signing, the kids right now are signing contracts for their code of conduct to wear our jerseys. A homeschool student hasn't signed that contract. So
Okay, so that's.
any other discussion?
No.
With that, we'll move to the closing items. I guess, Michelle, we do not have to vote on these since we did them individually, correct? Just need to announce them.
That's correct.
All right, so policy is going to first review. We're taking policy 2-3 back to first review, policy 2-19, policy 3-2A with amendments, policy 4-8, policy 4-11, policy 5-3, policy 6-5, and then policy 1-2 back to the full board with the additional amendments as well. With that, our next board meeting is August 25th. It is set for 9 o'clock. Understand Spit may or may not have a meeting, so if they don't have a meeting, we may move that to an 8 o'clock spot if that opens up, but we'll announce that at a later time.
Well, and one thing that Dr. Ulan mentioned at the SPTT meeting is that it's first week of school, so we may change that altogether.
That'll be a busy week, so we'll stay tuned to that day. It may even be a virtual meeting if it's something quick, or it may be that we move to September.
that's a good
motion to adjourn.
second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Todd.
Bye, sir.